welcome back to Food Prep Guide. I got my Azure Standard haul this morning, so I thought I would show you what I got and discuss a few things about Azure Standard that you can expect. But I also found a new to me place online that will deliver straight to your door, unlike Azure Standard. And so this box right here, these boxes, and some boxes down on the floor that are extremely heavy, all came from that second place that I found. So stay tuned for that. For now, let's get started with the Azure Standard order.
By the way, if you would like help building your food storage, scroll down to the description box of this video and click this link for our free 1-year food storage plan. We calculated a year's supply of food for one person, then broke that data down into a week-by-week list of items to build your pantry on a budget. We'll send it straight to your inbox. If you're new here, we invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss all of our upcoming food preservation, pantry storage, and gardening tutorials. Now back to the kitchen.
So if you are new to Azure Standard, one thing to know, probably the biggest thing to know, is that it's a community drop-off is the way that you get your food. So they don't deliver to your house, they deliver to a designated location in a community, and all the people meet at that one spot to get their food. And another thing to know is that in generally you are expected to help unload the truck. Of course, if you are disabled or elderly or something like that, of course, it's not a deal breaker by any means. It's just anyone who is able-bodied is expected to kind of help unload the truck, and we all just kind of put it in different piles, organized by family name, and then people come and pick up their stuff. So that's how Azure Standard works, which is great because you do have to pay a little bit. It's like a flat percentage fee for shipping, but it's so much less than what you're going to pay on an exclusively online place. So this Azure Standard is mostly, you might be wondering why I bought from two separate places, and Azure Standard is almost solely organic. So everything there is going to be either organic or non-GMO. Not everything. Every now and then there's some regular, run-of-the-mill type brands and stuff, but for the most part, everything there's going to be organic and non-GMO. And when it comes to organic and non-GMO, Azure Standard normally has the absolute best prices for that, which is why I choose to order in bulk from Azure Standard. With that said, I don't purchase everything organic. In a perfect world, I would, but budget restraints, I don't buy everything organic. So sometimes, even though Azure Standard has the really, really good price and probably the best price on organic foods, they often don't even carry non-organic foods, especially for things like pastas. That's the thing that I have ordered from a different place. And so I'm used to paying a far cheaper price because I'm used to buying non-organic, and if I were to get it through Azure Standard, I would be forced to get organic and therefore forced to pay that higher price that I just cannot swing at this time. So this other place that I found is they do have organic options, but they have non-organic options in bulk for those items that you really just need the best, cheapest price on. They aren't necessarily quite as concerned about buying organic, just the realities of life, right? Everyone would buy organic if they could. So let's start with the Azure Standard order. I have a bag of buttermilk powder. I try to get I think it's 5 pounds. Yes, I try to get a 5-pound bag of buttermilk powder with every order, which generally happens twice a year, sometimes once a year. Just depends on how things go, how the garden produces, what kind of sales I stumble on throughout the year. But in general, it's going to be once or twice a year. And this 5-pound buttermilk powder lasts the entire year, because I don't use it a ton. The main way that I use buttermilk powder is when I'm making my meals in a jars. When I'm meal prepping a bunch of meals in a jars ahead of time, I like to have all of my dry ingredients there so that I can just add water, or I can just add a jar of pasta sauce or a jar of salsa. And that's when I primarily use my buttermilk powder. When I'm making my biscuits that are like buttermilk biscuits, I will actually use that vinegar hack that we discussed in a recent video, where our buttermilk hack that involves using vinegar into your plain regular whole milk. That's what I will use mostly for my biscuits. But for my dry mixes, pantry mixes, meal in a jar type mixes, this is what I use buttermilk powder for. Next is 5-pound bag of dried cranberries, and I got 2 of those, I think. Yes, I got 2 bags. of dried cranberries, and this is a good example of something that is not organic, but it is non-GMO, and the ingredients are very clean. A lot of dried cranberries have high fructose corn syrup, or they might have something like canola oil in them. And Azure Standards does not have either of those things in it. It is just cranberries, sugar, and I think sunflower oil. Let me see. It's listed on here. Yep, sunflower. Cranberries, cane sugar, sunflower oil. So just 3 ingredients. We stock our salad toppings and try to stock those in bulk that are shelf stable. So of course we will preserve food from the garden, but most of the preserved foods that we use from the garden are for cooking with, not necessarily salad toppings. But there are some exceptions, like our red onions. We grow red onions specifically for freeze drying or dehydrating for use as salad toppings because they remain kind of a little bit hard and crunchy, and it's kind of like an onion crouton. So when we are trying to grow our salads and not have to buy anything for salads, shelf stable toppings that work for salads really help us do that and not have to spend as much money as we would on salads, judging by how much salad that we eat. It could really bust our budget. So this is how we kind of help that. And that the other item that I got kind of goes with that. Oh yeah, here it is. And that is 5 pounds of pumpkin seeds. We do raw pumpkin seeds, not salted, not roasted. We try to limit as much of those oils as possible and stick to coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil for the omega-9s and try to avoid the omega-6 based oils. But pumpkin seeds, really, really good. And the price on these seems to be the best that I can find, especially compared to just local stores like Walmart or Aldi's or something like that. Okay, I am running out of space. I think I'm going to put these on the ground for a second so I know what I've gone through and what I haven't. Okay, real quick, I forgot one of the things I wanted to do in this video was just very briefly tell you how I store each thing. So the dried cranberries I store, and the pumpkin seeds, dried cranberries and pumpkin seeds, I store in half-gallon mason jars. The pumpkin seeds I will vacuum seal. The cranberries I will not vacuum seal because they're a little bit too moist, and I don't feel comfortable vacuum sealing those because of the moisture level, and you don't want to put something moist in an oxygen-free environment because you have the potential breeding grounds for botulism. I don't think there's enough moisture in dried cranberries to make that happen, but I don't know, and if I'm not absolutely certain, then I'm just not even going to risk it. One thing I have found, I try to stock a year's supply of dried cranberries, or at least a 6-month supply, and I have never had dried cranberries go bad within a year, ever. Not vacuum sealed, just stored in a mason jar with the lid screwed on. I have had a 1-year shelf life, no issues whatsoever, so just keep that in mind. And then the, what is it? Oh yeah, buttermilk powder. The buttermilk powder I don't use as frequently, and because I don't use it as frequently, I will put the buttermilk powder in quart jars. That way I can keep all of the jars that I'm not currently working through, I can keep those vacuum sealed and only keep the one that I'm working through open. Buttermilk powder is completely dry, so we don't have that issue, but we do have the fact that it is a fat. It has, it's derived from a fat, and therefore rancidity is an issue. It can go bad faster than something like pumpkin seeds. But again, I try to stock a year's supply of these things, and I've never had buttermilk powder go bad either. And now that is keeping in mind that I only keep 1 jar open, and then all the rest are vacuum sealed. So pumpkin seeds in a jar, vacuum sealed. Dried cranberries in a jar, not vacuum sealed. Buttermilk powder in multiple little smaller jars so that I can keep most of them vacuum sealed and only keep the one I'm working through open. Okay, next is 10 pounds of cocoa powder. So cocoa powder we use in all of our, not all of them, but a lot of our baking and a lot of our homemade pantry mixes. If you missed that video, we have a video on 5 or 6 different pantry mixes that we make. That can be, I'll link that in the description box if you missed it. But we use that in a lot of our pantry mixes, but primarily outside of that, it's going to be smoothies. We drink a lot of smoothies. I personally drink one for breakfast every single day. Every now and then my kids beg me for one and I'll make them one, and it'll typically have a scoop of cocoa powder in it. This is a year's supply, 10 pounds of that. This I actually store in a 5-gallon bucket. And again, it lasts over a year, and I don't, anything that I put in a 5-gallon bucket, I can't really vacuum seal that. You can put an oxygen absorber in there. I'm not really super convinced that an oxygen absorber is very effective in a 5-gallon bucket. I think it's just a little bit too porous for it to be very effective. But I do put a desiccant pack or a silica gel pack in the 5-gallon bucket with the cocoa powder. Anything that is extremely prone to moisture as its number one enemy, which all of your powders, moisture is going to be their number one enemy. You can use that desiccant pack, also known as a silica gel pack. We do have a video that breaks down the differences between silica gel packs and oxygen absorbers, and I'll link that down in the description box as well. But these are going to go in a 5-gallon bucket with some desiccant packs inside the bucket. And all of my 5-gallon buckets have Gamma Seal lids. I do not recommend those the plastic thin lids that come with 5-gallon buckets. They are far too porous, far too not at all air blocking. But the Gamma Seal lids screw down, and while you're not getting an oxygen-free environment, you are getting an airtight seal. Okay, so 10 pounds of cocoa powder. Next is 10 pounds of arrowroot powder. And this is by far the best price per ounce that I have found anywhere is from Azure Standard. And it's organic, and not even the non-organic stuff is, even the non-organic kind at other places is more expensive than the organic kind at Azure Standard. So 10 pounds of arrowroot powder. This is a fantastic gluten-free alternative to flours for thickening and making your gravies, thickening sauces and things like that. Even something like working into your glaze for cinnamon rolls, all of our different gravies. It's just a great overall. It even has some uses outside of the kitchen that are fantastic. I store arrowroot powder in the 1/2-gallon mason jars as well. I don't use any oxygen absorbers. You absolutely could vacuum seal it if you want to. It's just going to be an added layer of protection. But I have never had arrowroot go bad just being in a glass jar with the lid on. Just my personal experience, but it never hurts to have that extra layer of insurance with an oxygen absorber or just vacuum sealing it, as long as the food that you're sealing isn't high moisture, like the dried cranberries. Okay, that's that for that box. So then I also, oh yeah, I forgot. So I didn't start enough cabbage seedlings in my winter sowing milk jugs this year. I was about 8 short. And they have, it's called Ellie's Eden, is their supplier, the Azure Standard branch of seedlings. They are all organic, and they come in a 5-pack. You're guaranteed to get 5. Sometimes you'll get 6. I got 2 little things of these. One had 5, one had 6 in it. So just to give you an idea. I imagine that seedling prices vary throughout the country big time. So just in my area, seedlings are going for about $3 to $4 per plant. And just to give you an idea, this 5-pack was $3.50. So $3.50 for a 5-pack of these cabbage seedlings. They look beautiful. Now they were a lot perkier when I got them, but I set them outside immediately, and it's like got up to 80 degrees today. So the sun's been beating down on them. I need to get them in the ground later tonight, and I will do that. But they also have live plants that you can purchase from them, so that's fun. They almost always give you a little catalog thing to go in there so you can kind of see what else they have. I think, oh yeah, the main part of the show from Azure Standard, okay. It is way too heavy. It's a 50-pound bag, but you see, I got 2 bags right there, and those are organic. Those are whole organic rolled oats, and that is the type of oats that we stock in bulk. I always order 2 50-pound bags for a total of 100 pounds, and that is enough to get us through the year for making our oatmeal cookies, our instant oatmeal packs. We have a video on that if you're interested on how to make your own instant oatmeal, in a jar, just add water. I'll link that in the description box below. But we have just different types. We have like a fruit crisp that we will use in combination with something from the garden, whether it's strawberries or blueberries or pears or something like that, and make like a fruit cobbler crisp type thing that has oats in it. But primarily it's going to be used for oatmeals and oat type breakfasts. That's primarily what we eat, what my kids eat on weekdays, and so we go through a whole lot of it because it's not just that, it's also in our pantry mixes that we make a lot of too. So 100 pounds of organic rolled oats. Oats is one of those things I will always, always buy organic. I will always dedicate my budget, my organic budget, to oats because they are heavily sprayed with glyphosate. Don't want any of that. So the organic rolled oats, I used to purchase them through Amazon. I can't think of the company's name right now. Great River Organic Milling Company. Yes, that's who I used to purchase organic oats from. They used to have a great price, but with inflation, it's not just them, it's everybody I know, but with inflation, the price just got astronomical, but Azure Standard's price has stayed the same. So I am paying, you're going to be paying about $1 a pound for organic rolled oats through Azure Standard, which is a fantastic deal. Okay, I think that is it from Azure Standard. So I mentioned that I found this new company and they ship to your door. The company is called webstaurant.com. It's like restaurant, except the first part they took out rest and they added web. Webstaurant.com. And they're a restaurant supplier. And the shipping, I will say, is pretty high. And it honestly pained me a little bit to pay that much in shipping. But number one, it came straight to my doorstep, and number two, more importantly, their prices were so cheap that even with the high shipping, it was either better than, significantly cheaper than, or equal to what I could go up to Walmart and get, or go up to Aldi's and get. So, I'm trying to remember what I paid in shipping. I think it was $55 in shipping, and I got about 200 pounds of food. So the shipping does change according to the weight of your goods. But let me get this opened and see. I know I got two 50-pound bags of flour because I was going to get my flour from Azure Standard. They have a great price, fantastic price on flour, and it's organic. But they sell out very fast. And one of the things about Azure Standard is, but since you don't check out immediately, I mean, you do check out, you say you're done, you add your things to the cart, you put in your information, and you do check out. But since it doesn't ship at that moment, this is one of the things I don't love about Azure Standard, is that it can go out of stock between the time that you checked out to the time that it's delivered to your drop-off point. And you never really know until you either get an email a few days before your drop-off time or on drop-off day and it just doesn't show up, so you know that they were out of stock. They absolutely refund your money. You get your money back almost instantly, so it's not, that's not an issue. But it's just, when I'm trying to make these bulk purchases, I usually only do it once or twice a year, so it can be a little frustrating to pay for it, knock it off my list, or throw my list away, think it's done, and then for it to 2 weeks later come up and be like, oh, okay, never mind, I didn't get that. So that happened with the flour. And I would normally like to purchase that from Azure Standard, but I'm glad that that happened this year because it sent me on this wild goose chase looking for a really good price on flour. Now, the flour, I would prefer to have organic flour from Azure Standard, but I don't absolutely have to have organic flour. My two must-haves for flour is unbromated and unbleached. I will not buy flour that has been bromated. It's a chemical. It's actually the same type of chemical that is used to make like pajamas and stuff fireproof, or not fireproof, but fire resistant. Of course, they're not fireproof. But anyway, it doesn't belong in our food and certainly doesn't belong in our flour. So I'll get unbromated and unbleached flour. One brand that that's what they do is unbleached, unbromated, is King Arthur flour. That's their tagline: never bleached, never bromated. And so that's where I started my search, was with King Arthur. And this webstaurant.com place had Sir Galahad flour. And I looked up the protein percentage, And I looked up reviews about how it works as an all-purpose flour because it is technically a bread flour. Sir Galahad Artisan Flour is what it says, 50-pound bag. And what I saw was the protein percentage was the same as the all-purpose flour that I've been purchasing, which is 11.7%. And the reviews were saying, you know, it's mostly restaurant owners who shop from this place, and they were all saying that that's what they use for their all-purpose flour in their restaurants. But it makes a great bread flour too, because that's technically is a bread flour. So I think it's going to be really good for our needs, because while we do use flour in other ways, it is primarily for our breads. So to give you an idea of price, this 50-pound bag was $32. 50-pound bag of this flour, never bleached, not bromated, $32. Now you have to calculate in the shipping because, well, because the shipping's there, it's not free shipping, and it is pretty high. Like I said, I think it was $50 or $55 that I paid. But when I calculated the shipping and added that to the price of the flour, it was still far, far cheaper than what I could get buying the small bags at Walmart or buying online at Amazon or any other kind of. I have a couple of other grocery type places that I will look online, like Vitacost, but it was far cheaper even with having to pay that pretty high shipping rate, still far cheaper. So I picked up 100 pounds of that flour. That's going to get us through the year, hopefully, because I do still have one 5-gallon bucket, which holds around 30 pounds of flour. And I think we generally need 150 pounds of flour to get us through the year. So between this 100 pounds, I've got another box down here, and the 30-ish that I still have, I think that might get us through the year. It'll definitely get us through to our next Azure haul when I can get some more organic flour from them. So 2 50-pound boxes of that. Ooh, there goes my mason jar. It didn't break. Okay, so the other 2 things that I buy in bulk that I don't buy organic because of just budget reasons, and that is pasta. I don't dedicate my grocery budget, organic grocery budget, to pasta. So I have got something. It's like, I hope it's not a bug. Okay, so I got 20 pounds each of, I think it was rotini and elbow macaroni, I think. Let me get in here and see. So at my local Walmart, pasta runs about $1 a pound for the cheapest brand. And this place was right at that. It was right at $19 for 20 pounds. Some of them were, no, scratch that. It was like $16 for 20 pounds. It was about 20 pounds when I factored in the price of shipping. But I'm getting 20 pounds at one time, and it's being shipped to my door versus me having to go into Walmart or Aldi's and buy 20 individual small little bags, and I really don't want to have to do that because I get multiple types of flour. So it actually having to go to the store and walking out with like 80 bags of pasta, and I'm just not going to do that. So it was cheaper, $16 for 20 pounds, but factored in the shipping, it was around the same, $20. How is this going to come out? Okay, well, you can see elbow macaroni-ish. I think you can see that. And the other one that I buy is, let's see, rotini, I'm pretty sure. And it was the same price. They had elbow macaroni, penne, and rotini, all from this same brand. They were all around $16 and change per 20-pound box. Yes, rotini. So there's another 20 pounds of rotini there. And I think that's all I got from the restaurant store. I did have a few other items picked out from there because I'm almost out of sugar, and canning season is going to be here before we know it. So even though we don't use a ton of sugar on a regular basis, I do need a bulk purchase of sugar to get me through canning season to make all of our jams and jellies and stuff like that. And I was going to get it from there, but a 50-pound bag of it was going to make my shipping rate go up astronomically. So I just took it off so that I could stay on budget, and it all worked out pretty good. Okay, I think that's it. Yep. As far as storing pasta, I store those in 5-gallon buckets because, like I said, we do around 20 pounds of each style pasta that we eat. and a 5-gallon bucket holds around 25 pounds of pasta, just to give you an idea. I don't usually put anything special in there except for, not basil, bay leaves. I will store the pasta. I'll put bay leaves inside the 5-gallon bucket directly on top of the pasta. I have been asked before, doesn't it make your pasta smell and taste like bay leaves? And it does not. It doesn't impart that into your cooked food end product. So I'll put the bay leaves directly on top of the pasta, seal it up with a Gamma Seal lid in the 5-gallon bucket, and then I will also sprinkle bay leaves on top of the lid of the bucket, just to deter pests, because pests are going to be the primary enemy of pastas. I think like pantry moths, you know, they're just kind of attracted to anything grain-based. So I will do that. I have in the past sprinkled diatomaceous earth in my pasta as well. It seems like we rotate through each singular 5-gallon bucket quick enough to where I don't absolutely have to use the diatomaceous earth. But if you're going to be using the diatomaceous earth, make sure it is food grade. And one reason why I do tend to use it on my pasta is because we have to rinse I rinse my pasta off anyway before I cook with it, just like I do my rice. So if it has to be rinsed anyway, it's no extra step to clean that diatomaceous earth off of the pasta. I'll just scoop out the pasta from the 5-gallon bucket, put it in my strainer basket, run it under the sink, and I'm good to go to start cooking with it. And that's how I store my pasta. We have a whole video dedicated to how we store flour, and I will link that in the description box below as well. I will say that I am experimenting with 5-gallon bucket storage instead of the way that we show in that video. The way that we show in that video is the way that I have been storing flour for years and years and years. I know for a fact that it works and it protects your flour against pests. The 5-gallon bucket method I don't have as much experience with, and I'm still experimenting with it. I'm going to watch and see, and maybe after it's been about a year, I'll report back and let you know, did pests get in, did it go stale, you know, all of that. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, y'all, I hope that was helpful, and we will see you next time. Bye.